Good morning, leaders. Good morning, and welcome to Monday Morning Leadership Huddle. I'm your favorite neighbor, Jay Murray. This is where I provide you with tips and tools to drive your leadership purpose. What's going on, family? Hope all is well. Do me a favor. Don't forget to like, don't forget to share, don't forget to subscribe. Make sure your notifications are turned on so you can be in the know so you won't miss any of the Monday morning leadership huddle topics. And let me just say thank you to all of the listeners. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for your comments. Um, and thank you just for sharing this with others as we continue to walk in our calling, to walk in our purpose as leaders. Speaking of walking in our calling, walking our purpose, family, you know what? I have been experiencing some ups and downs. I've been experiencing some moments where I have not, in my opinion, been focused on this calling. Haven't been focused as I should as a leader, and it's with kind of battling these thoughts. Um, if I can be honest and very transparent, as you know, transparency and authenticity, that is my leadership love language. That is my leadership language. So that's what I lead with. And that's what I enjoy others leading with that as well. And, I've been, when I think about it and reflect on it, I haven't been in the best headspace, but I am recovering. I am getting better. um, this really took notice as I went on a vacation, which I talked about this in an early episode, and it was hard for me to relax. It was hard for me to have a clear mind, and that's when I noticed that hey, I may need to go talk to somebody. I may need to go talk to somebody, and really, I'm fortunate. I'm blessed. I'm thankful for the benefits that I have to where I can go talk to therapists. I can go talk to a health uh, mental coach. And just a side note to the young leaders out there that may be weighing their option of jobs, where you want to maybe start out. Hey, don't just look at the bag. Don't just look at the compensation. Make sure you look at the total compensation, all the benefits that comes with it. Because if you can find a place of employment that will really provide you with the tools and the options to help you with your mental health. For me, and again, maybe that's just me. Maybe me at this age, that's like two or three check marks for me, right? That's like two or three check marks. And again, if you're a full time entrepreneur, definitely that take advantage of these different programs and different um community programs that will help you with your mental health. It doesn't always mean that you have to go out and seek one-on-one therapy, but definitely as I just went to a eco therapy with some of my community partners, you can go and do stuff like that, but take time to really focus on your mental health. And in family, I was as I said before, after I did the vacation and had talk with my wife and like, hey, I may need to go back and talk to someone. And so I got a mental health coach or a health mental coach. Um, and it has been now over the last four weeks now that I've been working with him. And just to kind of give you the difference, like a mental health coach will pretty much, it's always like that they're coaching you to these different techniques and practices to kind of help you with these create these preventive measures, right? So they don't necessarily do what a therapist would do, meaning that they will look at your past, understand your traumas to kind of get an idea of how you get here. The mental health coaches say, hey, you're here, how can we prevent you from you know backtracking? How can we now coach you to these now healthy habits, right? And one thing that I have learned that really has helped me as I kind of talk about today, reflection and using reflection as a tool. to change our perspective. It's this technique called chain analysis. And chain analysis is a process that you do to kind of trace your steps backwards, to trace your steps, to kind of like see what happened that caused you to act out in this way. What caused those thoughts that turn to feelings, that turn to emotions, then behaviors, right? In chain analysis, the first step that you're doing is understanding your vulnerabilities, right? And at that moment, when whatever happened that caused these thoughts, that caused these emotions, what were your vulnerabilities at that time? You know, so it could be I was sleepy, I was frustrated, I was hungry, I've been traveling, and those were some of my vulnerabilities at the time. It's been also as I do more reflection, it was, something happened at work, or I'm trying to problem solve this issue that I'm having with the with my business, right? Or something else, right? I read something, I scrolled on one of these social media things, and now I'm not in the best headspace. So those are certain things that helps you to understand that, okay, your vulnerabilities was exposed, that causes these thoughts that then cause these feelings. So the idea is to, when those things occur, when whatever situation or things that may occur to kind of knock you off, your headspace, what things can you do or recognize and say, okay, I'm a little bit vulnerable right now. Let me shift my thoughts, right? And as I thought about that, as I've been working on that, I've been working on this additional practice that kind of gives me more of a linear approach to tie it to my purpose and my calling, right? That really has helped me to be more grounded in how I'm being very deliberate with my reflection, and how can, in those moments where I am vulnerable, how I can quickly or take a process or initiate or walk through a process to help me shift my thoughts, or in this case, pivot my thoughts. Okay. And as I was working on my own, managing my own mental health, I came across this verse in the Bible that really kind of brought this theory, this process of thinking together, that really helped me shift my thoughts and understand the purpose of what I'm going through, right? And understand how it's tied to my purpose, right? And how it's so in this case it's counterintuitive to say it. It's rewarding to do it, to go through it, because it's building me up. The verse I'm talking about in the Bible is written by Paul in Romans. And at first, family, when I read this, I was like, because again, I was in the space of like, that don't, like, how can you do that? That just don't make sense. I'm just not that type of of a Christian. I'm not that type of believer, right? Maybe that just, God, you have to continue to work on me with that, right? And as I dig a little bit deeper, I found a little bit more context to understand that Paul was writing this from a reflection. Paul was reflecting on certain things that he was going through. Now, if you are familiar with Paul, you understand that Paul used to kill Christians, until God transformed his life, and he now became a evangelist and just now spreading the gospel. And if you again understand, when Paul started spreading the gospel, Paul endured a lot of persecution. I mean, it was at one point that Paul got stoned and thrown out of a city. He was in prison, you know. So it was a lot of times that Paul endured a lot of persecution that helped me to understand how he now is reflecting on this. So let me just read. So I'm reading chapter 5, verse 1. I'll start with verse 4 and I'll read all the way down to like maybe 4. So it says, therefore, Again, Romans 5, verse 1. Therefore, since we have been justified through faith, we have peace with God through our Lord Jesus Christ, through whom we have gained access by faith into this grace in which we now stand. I know, yeah, sounds good, right? And we rejoice in the hope of the glory of God. Oh yeah, okay, I can. That sounds good. That's really, I'm feeling that. All right, I'm feeling that right now. I'm able to partake into this and gain access through my faith, to have this rejoice in this hope. And then Paul just flipped it on me. He flipped it on me in verse 3. Paul says, not only so, but we also rejoice in our suffering. Hold up now, Paul. What? That don't sound like, how can we rejoice in suffering? How am I gonna be happy when I'm suffering? When I'm mad, when I'm stressed. That don't sound, what? Okay, keep reading. So Paul says, not only so, but we also rejoice in our suffering because we know that suffering produces perseverance. Perseverance, character, and character, hope. And hope does not disappoint us because God has poured out his love into our hearts by the Holy Spirit in whom he gave us. Now, as I read that and I did a little bit more digging, I started to understand, okay, the reflection of how Paul used reflection. Paul understood through the power of reflection his purpose, right? And he understood how, by knowing his purpose, how he could change, how he can pivot his thoughts to when he's going through these suffering, that he can say, you know what, I was called for this. You know what, this is going to build, this is going to give me more perseverance. This is going to build my endurance. It's going to help me to build my character. It's going to help me build my hope. Now, let's take a little step further. When I looked into perspective, right, and changed on perspective, Google has it just simplified as perspective is a point of view. It's a point of view, right? It's a point of view. So the question became to myself was, what view am I pointing towards? What view am I pointing towards? Because if I am pointing towards a view that does not resemble hope, then I need to change my perspective. I need to change my point of view. I need to change my point of view. Because if my point of view, if my view is not pointing towards a sense of confidence, being optimistic, if my point of view doesn't point towards a sense of clarity and belief in knowing that whatever I'm going through, it's just for a season. If my view doesn't point towards that, then I have to change my perspective. And family, just to say, you may be going through moments of where you feel like you suffering, right? As I felt like, right? To where I don't know why these thoughts are coming in my head. I don't know why I'm not seeing, the results that I want to see. Where sometimes with my business, I don't know, like the stressors, right? Sometimes being overwhelmed with what is going on in the world when I'm kind of just scrolling through things. Um, like those things definitely weigh on me at times. It weigh on me raising me and my wife raising a teenager. You know what I'm saying? Like that of itself, man, is sometimes it's compounded, going through changes at work, you know, finding time for me and my wife to spend time together. All these things where sometimes you feel like you're doing the best you can and you just like, I'm still not getting there, right? But when I have those moments where my perspective, the view of my perspective not pointing towards of hope. Have to change my perspective. I have to pivot my thoughts. So here's the process that I'm now taking when I'm experiencing those moments. When I'm experiencing moments of just simply my thoughts are not in good, it's not good. I pivot my thoughts and I recognize the calling, the purpose that I have on my life, right? And by me recognizing the call and the purpose that I have in my life, to pivot my thoughts, I have to now begin to speak differently over my situation. That's what I think Paul was doing here. As Paul now on his third missionary trip, right? As you go through things, now you have to speak differently. Speak differently over the things that you're going through. And as I start to speak things differently over the things that I'm going through, it's just I'm vulnerable right now. Let me recognize my vulnerability. Okay. Let me now, instead of reacting to this, let me respond to this. Let me respond to this. I now begin to speak differently. Being that I'm not able to speak differently to myself, I'm able to pivot my thoughts. And once I'm able to pivot my thoughts, I'm able to shift my perspective to do what? To walk in my purpose. Family, there's going to be times where we kind of get knocked off, right? We get knocked off our track. We're not on our A game, if you want to say that. We're not always going to be just in our purpose. May not always be just walking directly in our calling. And that's definitely okay. Right? It's times we won't do that 100% of times. Right? We're human. But understand that in having a hope, going back to that hope, going back to that sense of confidence, going back to that understanding and belief and the hope that now I know I was called for this. I have a purpose on my life. I have a purpose for my life. So let me pivot my thoughts, because these thoughts of what I'm having, the view that I have is not pointing towards hope. It's not pointing towards the recognition of knowing my purpose, of walking in my purpose. So let me pivot my thoughts in order to shift my perspective to then walk in my purpose. So those moments when I'm experiencing those thoughts, family, I have used that process of pivoting my thoughts. Let me change the way that I'm speaking. Let me not just react. Let me respond, right? And recognize my vulnerabilities. Let me understand, okay, it's not so bad. We're going to get through this. Let me increase my faith in this. Let me pivot my thoughts to change my perspective, to walk in my purpose, to walk in my purpose. Family, I hope this has been helpful. Hope that you can use this as you experience the ups and downs, just the different challenges of life. And understanding, because you were called for this, because you have a purpose on your life, you can look at this situation, circumstance, and understand that you are building your perseverance. You're building your endurance. That is going to build your character. That's going to build up your hope to continue to walk in your purpose. So understand that leadership It's not a title, but rather it is a choice. And today today you, today we choose to pivot our thoughts. We choose to shift our perspective to walk in our purpose. Till next time, be blessed, family.